If someone else thinks you're a psychopath and you think you're not, should you actually step back and be like, if I want this person to be in my life, I should probably be a little bit more like what they want. Is that valid? Is that good to do? So this is the Do You Have a Minute podcast. I'm LS and you are?
And DM.
And in this podcast, we just talk about whatever we think about. I'm thinking about psychopathy, and so we're going to talk about that today. And last week we were thinking about, what were we thinking about?
Victims. Perhaps victims of psychopaths.
Maybe. And so we talked about that, and we're not experts, and we know nothing about what we are talking about except for what we've read. And
what's in our brains. And we'll see where it goes.
And both of us are very stupid.
Perfectly stupid.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right.
Dad, do you have a minute right now?
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about psychopathy, and I've been preparing also a little bit.
You've read a little bit on it recently?
Yeah. I listened to a podcast, an interview of a psychologist who wrote a book about psychopathy. His name is Kent Kyle, and he wrote The Psychopath Whisperer, The Science of Those Without Conscience. So that title by itself suggests that you have to not have a conscience in order to be a psychopath, right?
The Science of Those Without Conscience. Yeah. So psychopaths typically, they don't wear their conscience on their sleeve anyway.
Anyway, yeah, without visible conscience, maybe.
Yeah. Or their first reaction isn't a conscious reaction. That may be, that's what my thought on it was.
Yeah, is conscious related to conscience?
What did he say? Without a conscience.
Well, conscience versus consciousness, they are different meanings. Google says conscious and conscience are different. Conscious is awake, alert, fully aware of something. Conscience is referring to a person's inner sense of right and wrong. I mean, if we talked about it enough, we could probably figure out how conscience and conscious are related.
Right or wrong.
And we could make up a related meaning.
You can be conscious but not have conscience. Not have a moral conscience as right or wrong. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
So is it talking conscience the way it described it in the definition you just picked up?
Yeah.
It kind of talked about the moral conscience.
Conscience, the moral conscience. Not knowing right and wrong.
Yeah, there's no other conscience other than moral conscience then. Right or wrong. How much?
Okay, yeah.
How much of something to do or how little of something to do is just a moral decision. Oh, it's a conscience decision.
And we're thinking about Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket. And Jiminy Cricket is Pinocchio's conscience because Pinocchio is made of wood and he has no heart and he's not alive, but he is animated.
Right. He can do things, and someone that can do things and doesn't have a conscience about it doesn't really care what they do. They do anything.
Yeah.
Do what feels right in a minute without how it affects anyone else.
Right. These psychopaths don't have a Jiminy Cricket telling them something might not be a good idea.
Right. Everything's a good idea. As opposed to someone who thinks everything's a bad idea.
Oh, yeah. An anxious person?
An anxious person, a victim. A victim is going to think everything's a bad idea. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be victimized.
Yeah.
A psychopath is the opposite side of that will do anything because nothing can hurt me. Nothing hurts anyone else.
Yeah, well, and they're only thinking about what will benefit them. So I did find I researched a little bit that if psychopath is a diagnosable condition, it's not in the DSM-5 book, like the book that psychologists use to diagnose disorders. It's not in there. The closest one to that is conduct disorder with a limited pro-social emotion specifier, is how it says somewhere on the internet. And it's only diagnosable in youth.
Sociopath?
Yeah.
sociopath in there?
I don't know if sociopath. No, sociopath isn't a diagnosable thing either. I think it's just a broad definition of a few different disorders that you can have.
Psychopathy.
Yeah.
Because schizophrenia is a psychopathic disorder.
Yeah.
But it's a specific, and it certainly has a definition, a diagnosis.
Right. Well, yeah. So if someone's a psychopath, they say the closest diagnosable thing to it would be a conduct disorder where you have no control. You seemingly have no control over what you do.
Okay.
How you conduct yourself in any situation, I guess. Prosocial emotion. I don't know what that limited prosocial emotion is the specifier. So you're antisocial, maybe, is what that is saying. You hate people. Like Scrooge sings, I hate people.
Yeah.
And it does specify in the book. I could have gone to the library to read the book itself. It's not available to read online, but it's in the reference section of the library. I just didn't go over and do that. But like WebMD and sites like that say that this limited prosocial emotion and conduct disorder is diagnosable in youth. Like you notice it when they're young. It's not something usually that happens suddenly when you're an adult.
Right. Well, the things I've read about it is some of the studies I looked at recently is that psychopathy is genetic. If you have markers in your ancestry that were
okay,
and this was specifically schizophrenia. That's what the studies were about. You're more likely to be schizophrenic if you've had people that are, and then it is situational. You have to have both of them. You have to have some trauma or triggering event in your life to spur that on. Just the fact that there's a genetic disposition to it doesn't mean you're going to get it unless you're triggered in some way by some sort of trauma or event.
Yeah. Huh.
So.
Okay. So the reason that I wanted to talk about it, though, I don't think that I know any true psychopaths, like really someone that I would avoid at all costs because they are definitely a psychopath. I don't think I know anybody like that.
Okay, none that you have to avoid at all costs, like a Hannibal Lecter or the big ones, a Ted Bundy, a Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah.
Yeah.
No one who clearly is on the far right, far end spectrum of psychopathy.
Right. So, but I mean, it is a spectrum, so we're all in there somewhere,
you
right?
You used the word seems earlier. Seems to not have a conscience.
Okay.
That was, I wanted to key on that word, and that's just the way you said it. And maybe it says it in the book that way. But that seems to be, the word seems is a subjective term. It depends on where you're looking from. So no matter where you look from, someone may seem not to care. Anytime.
Yeah, someone may seem to be a psychopath depending on who you are.
Yeah, depending on where you're standing in that position, where you're looking at them from. So if you're offended by someone, the person that offends you, is that offending party always or sometimes a psychopath?
So always or sometimes?
Yeah, because that person offended you.
Is there not a third option? Not? Are they not a psychopath maybe?
Sure. That would be on the other side of sometimes. Psychopathy. Pathy is a disease. It's a damage. The suffix pathy means there's a disease of something, a disorder.
Okay.
There's something wrong. So I was offended. There's a pathy here, and the pathy that I'm feeling from that other person, it's either physical or psychological. They either offended me by their words or by their fist.
Mm-hmm.
So to offend me one way or the other, they had to think about it first. So that's my thought on this is no matter what someone does, they're doing it because they thought about it. If you think about it, that's the psychology part. That's the psych part of it. Psych is that you've thought about it. You've considered it. You did something. And you can't do anything unless you think about it first. And you didn't necessarily think about it with conscience, but you thought about it. If you thought about it with conscience, you might not do it. You might talk yourself out of it. But if you don't have a conscience, or you throw your conscience to the wind, you're going to do the thing anyway. Like kind of what we talked about. I know I shouldn't do something, but I'm going to do it anyway because I've got a higher value. I've got a value that allows me to do this. Or I know I should do this. I should say kind words to these people, but I'm not going to because my higher value is to be silent. So you got the values that identify your conscience reaction, but the person receiving it could still say that's a poorly chosen action, and it's an indication of psychopathy.
Right. Okay.
So my question for you to answer still, is it sometimes or always psychopathy?
Sometimes then, because nothing is always. Always is an absolute.
Is it possible not to be psychopathic in your actions? I'm still going to fight against that.
Okay.
There is an absolute. Yeah, I think maybe we've identified an absolute, a singularity.
Mm-hmm. Because everyone is always psychopathic.
Right.
If someone thinks they are. Is that what you're clarifying?
From any position, is there a position that you could say that action was psychopathic? If there exists a position that action could be psychopathic, not considering that position, then it has to be. I don't think you
just because it is the observer that is choosing, determining the psychopathic nature of it or not. Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
And whether there's an observer or not, is it potential? So there's two people talking. Is it potential someone could see it from 30 degrees off of that? That there could be someone, if someone could be there in that position and say, no, they do that in movies all the time where from one angle it looks like you actually slapped him in the face. And from the other angle that you missed by 3 inches. And so that's what makes the movie look nice, look good.
Yes.
You film it from the angle that looks like he hit him right in the face, but he actually didn't contact. So if there's an angle, then that's a psychopathic move.
Mm-hmm.
I think just the description, that may be why it's not in the DSM, is because every action we do is psychopathic. It has the potential of damaging. Everything we do has the potential of damaging somehow.
Yeah. The Kent Kyle, the author of that book,
right,
talked about a 20-question checklist, and this is how psychologists determine if there is psychopathy in there.
I took some of those tests. Who was it that came up with it? Partridge. It's the Partridge test. In 1930, he came up with it.
Okay.
And probably specifies that in this book, in Kyle's book.
Let me look at it.
Partridge Psychological Scale.
Psychopathy spectrum test. Well,
there's a number of tests. I took 4 of them, actually. Took 4 tests.
Well, do you know how you scored?
Personally, yeah, and they give you the thing right away. So you'll see them on there. They're 10 or 12. The Haywise is one of them, the first one I took. And so that was interesting. I went on there and found this test, and there's questions, and I answered the questions the way that I best felt, and they say the answers, it's not a right or wrong answer. You're not selecting the correct answer of A, B, C, or D. You're selecting which one closest identifies your feeling about this situation. So the closest identity you have to it. So I answered it, and my answer was, you are a psychopath. Not necessarily that you'll be in a movie, but you do have tendencies towards psychopathy. And I don't know how the test is designed. We haven't looked into that, but apparently it's designed appropriately, that it's lasted for 100 years.
Right. Yeah. So I printed off the Hare psychopathy checklist, revised. Okay. This is from criminologyweb.com is where I got this one. And I think this is the one that he was talking about in the book. But I didn't read the book, so it's likely that he talked about all of them that are there. Right. Anyway, and just looking over the 20 things that you can mark definitely not present, somewhat present, or definitely present, I think you're meant to mark these for if it's present in your childhood or as an adult. Like if this one of them is like lack of sincerity. If you're sincere now, but you weren't sincere, you had a complete noticeable lack of sincerity when you were a child, then maybe you've just learned how to figure that out. But you would mark definitely present. That was something that was notable in my childhood, even though it's not how I am right now.
Is that one of the questions? Sincerity.
Yeah, that is one.
What is that? What does that mean? I mean, I'd have questions as to why
sincerity.
I'm always sincere.
So it's combined with conning / lack of sincerity. Like you've got a nature to con
to lie
people
all the
into.
Time. So that's lying.
Yeah, there is the one right before that, pathological lying and deception.
Okay.
So it's different from lying, I guess. But pathological lying is like, I can't help but lie about this, even though it doesn't matter in the long run what my answer is, you know? I feel like I know a pathological liar in real life, and I don't get why this individual lies about the things. They're just a storyteller. Everything that comes out of their mouth is grand and amazing, and they had that. I am stunned at either if all of this is true, they're younger than me, and I can't imagine how all of it is true. But if it is, this is one amazing person that I know.
That's a Forrest Gump type person.
Maybe, yeah.
Lived the Forrest Gump life, which is fine.
Yes. But knowing how this person is today, I spend a bit of time with them on a regular basis.
Okay.
And knowing what kind of person they are today, knowing how they act when I'm around them, when I see them, I can't imagine that only 6 years ago, before I met them, they were this other person that they tell me that they were. So I'm 98% certain that they are lying about their life.
Okay.
But pathological lying, it's not like a lying to keep from getting into trouble. It's lying because you can't not lie, maybe.
And that's why they use the psychopathy term in regard to that. It's a pathological. It's a damaging. It's logically damaging things.
It's a disorder.
You know that you're not telling something that's right.
Right.
And psychopathy is that you can't stop it. You're not doing it on purpose. If you're doing this stuff on purpose, You're a narcissist. You're wanting to manipulate. You're putting out your lies, all that stuff. The psychopathy is on purpose. As a narcissist, so they do term that.
Yeah. So out of this list of 20 things that can be present or not present in your life, some of them are definitely present in my life, and some of them are somewhat present, but I would say most of them are definitely not present, and so I could probably rest assured that I would not score high enough to be a psychopath, according to this list.
For someone to say you're a psychopath. Okay.
Right. If I was in front of somebody and they were deciding if I was or not a
What's
psychopath.
question 13? Give me question 13 on that list of 20.
Lack of realistic long-term plans. That's definitely present in my life. I would score
lack of realistic
high
long-term
on that
plans.
one.
See, I believe I score low. I don't have a lack of long-term plans. I can see and have faith and confidence in long-term plans.
Okay. And now that I'm thinking about,
have no confidence in long-term plans, though.
Yeah, I am thinking about that statement closer now. Lack of realistic long-term plans. Okay, so I have realistic long-term plans. I just can't stick to them very well, maybe.
You don't stay on that.
That's what I think the problem is I don't fulfill my long-term plans as well as I'd like.
Is there a position? So let's say someone doesn't have. Would someone call anybody a psychopath? Is it possible, based on that question, to say, no, you don't have long-term plans, or everyone else or anyone else isn't good at realistic long-term plans?
Like, looking at this one question by itself,
right?
Could you say someone's a psychopath with this one?
Yeah, could everyone be a psychopath with that question? So just random question. If they say, I've got this long-term plan that I'm going to drive a car in 5 years? I'll be driving a car. I don't know.
Yeah, like if you're definitely not going to be driving a car in 5 years, and that's your plan, even if you were a paraplegic, you could still drive a car.
Right.
So that's not, we're going to have to pick another plan. Like I'm going to be living and working as a
realistic,
an astronaut. I'm going to be an astronaut in 5 years. That would not be realistic.
You could enter the astronaut program in 5 years.
Right. But I'm going to the moon.
Well, we don't know. I mean, that's still, see, let's just use that because we don't know how fast space exploration is going to advance. The first people that are non-astronaut trained people went up with the Dragon, with SpaceX's mission to the Space Center. They weren't military. They weren't trained by any astronaut system. They were brought in from society by application to be in the SpaceX astronaut program.
Right.
They didn't follow the standard 20-year procedure. They went through a 6-month or maybe 5 years. I don't know how long it was.
And they had enough money.
They did have to be trained.
That was the other thing.
Yeah, they did have to be trained. But with as fast as these starships are flying, and next week is the next test, so if the starships actually do 25 flights, do 2 every month this year, they're going to be peopled before the end of the year. And they're going to have to start getting a program to get people in those machines flying to the moon and flying wherever.
Right. Now, we're not saying that the plans can't happen. It's just, Is it realistic?
Okay.
Are their plans realistic? It's the lack of realistic long-term plans. Like in 5 years, I'm going to have my degree. That's a realistic plan. I could get a degree in 5 years. But if I had
so
no
you want
plan
to use that one
degree,
instead?
And my plan was, I
changing the subject.
I'm just giving it as an example. Of course.
So you thought you provided an unrealistic statement. Okay. You thought you gave me an unrealistic that in 5 years I'll be an astronaut. I just gave you a scenario is all I was answering is that it's potentially possible. And that's not unrealistic. So from my side, you're not psychopathic in thinking that. But from someone else's point, that's a psychopathic statement.
Right. From someone else's point, it is.
Right.
But considering my current trajectory, do you think that I could be an astronaut in 5 years? Considering what I'm doing today and where my values are.
You as a person, you individually, knowing what I know about you, if that was a true statement from you, I know it was a flippant statement. You flipped it out just because. Absolutely, you're not psychotic on it because it was just a straw man type thing you sent out there. It doesn't mean anything to you. If it meant something to you, if it was actually your goal, you would do it. I believe would do it.
Right. So I think that in order to be a psychopath with this one, you have to be like the kind of person that is always sitting around taking no initiative on anything, and people are like, "Hey, what are you gonna do in 5 years? What's your 5-year plan?" And they're like looking at their phone, looking at the ceiling. I think I'm gonna be an engineer, and that's not realistic for them. It's like it's not that they have
be an astronaut.
The initiative to do it. It's just they're saying something to placate someone's question, and that's what makes them maybe 1 out of 13, 1 out of 20, tending to be a psychopath is because they just don't care.
They said that without conscience. They didn't think about it, didn't consider it.
Yeah.
If you don't consider your responses, you have the possibility of being a psychopathic in everything you do because you're not considering anything. You're not using your conscience for anything you're doing. You're playing your video game. That's it. That's all that matters. World of Warcraft is my world. And nothing outside of that. So if there's nothing outside, anything else that comes up would be psychotic. And then your devotion to the game, your devotion to what you do believe life is about, eating food. I mean, if you just eat and play the game, then that's psychopathic.
Right.
You've got to have other goals, other dreams, other realistic long-term visions. That's probably what that question means. Do you have any realistic long-term anything? I only think about today. Then potentially and most likely you're a psychopath if you don't have any long-term thoughts.
Right. Potentially. In combination with these other 19
with everything
things.
else. Yeah. Yeah. So even with that one, though, I think it depends on the perspective of the observer as to whether psychosis and psychopathy are different things. I started using psychosis, and I think that's not right.
Okay. Yeah. I think it might be something different too, because it ends with osis and not opathy.
Well, psychosis is something that you can't affect. You're not apathy. You are doing it. Psychopathy, your psyche is causing damage, but you're actually still in control there. It's your consciousness. That's why he wrote that in the title of the book, without conscience. So you're either doing it with conscience and you're not psychopathic, or you lack conscience in some degree, it seems. And so because it seems that, you could be psychopathic.
Yeah.
I would bet his book covers that too.
Oh, yeah. Because it's subjective, because the person, the psychologist or the observer is seeing you, they have their own subjective biases. It would be good to get a second opinion.
Just in this synopsis of his book, Kyle's book, says, and as Kyle shows, many who aren't psychopaths exhibit some of the behaviors and traits associated with the condition. So
yeah,
you're not necessarily a psychopath, but you can be named that appropriately in this situation.
If someone felt like they knew enough for it, I guess. Like me and my pathological lying friend.
Yeah. And why would you lie about him like that? Or her? Or them?
Yeah, like them. I'm going to say them. I know many males and females, and I spend regular time with many of both
whoever
genders.
They are.
All genders.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about my own psychopathic tendencies, whether you think that I should adjust.
Whether you should cry about it?
I really want to know if I need to adjust. I don't want to lie about it, but...
I want to increase your anxiety.
Should I change? One thing that I have noted in myself is I do have a belief that I can do anything if I just put my mind to it. Is this true? Can I actually do anything if I just put effort into it? Like, this is let's see, on this list, where would this fit?
Limitations?
There's egocentricity, grandiose sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be the closest matching.
As I recall the tests I've taken, that's something about that is you can do everything.
Do you think I can achieve any goal? Is that an okay thing to think about myself?
Absolutely. Okay. Necessary. I think I think that's a necessary, but then I'm a psychopath, of course. I would think that.
Of course.
I don't think that limitations should stop you from doing things. And there may be neurotypical type people. The common thought out there is that you should identify what color is your parachute, those things. What is it that you have affinity for? What is it you have aptitude for? And do those things. Don't try to do anything outside of that. Don't try to play the violin. That's not your line of work. Yeah, don't try to understand psychopathy because you're not trained in that. You don't have any learning. You don't have the background. You don't have the biological background first, and then you don't have definitely not the psychological. You're a psychopath. You can't diagnose yourself. Leave that to the professionals. There's people that say leave that to the professionals, and you're not a professional, so do not even try it. Don't try to build your own house.
Do not even try.
Don't be the contractor to build your own house. That's the dumbest thing you could ever do.
Right.
You succeeded at that very well.
I am.
Didn't you? Didn't you succeed?
I'm living in it, so I must. It hasn't fallen apart yet.
Yeah, it's not falling apart. Everything worked out well.
It passed all the city inspections, so...
You accomplished it within budget, and it passed all the inspections. So that's good.
So it's okay. That's okay. I can believe that I can achieve any goal.
You'd be too limited.
There might be some very specific things that I can't do because of my physiological limits. Like, I'm I'm trying to think of something that isn't X-rated.
Yeah, I have an example for you. You can't get out of a straitjacket.
I can't?
No, I don't believe you can.
I feel like maybe I could. Okay.
No, because in order to do that, you would have to dislocate your shoulders. That has to happen in order to get out of the straitjacket. That's the way I understand it.
You know what?
I don't think you would do that. I think you would not practice enough to be able to dislocate your shoulders on at will.
Okay, what if I was going to die if I didn't get out of the straitjacket? I think I could probably figure out how to dislocate my shoulders.
How to dislocate it? Just like that. Yeah,
to keep from dying.
Take your arm off and allow it to move the way it needs to move in order to... It's like that 127 hours, I think it was, the guy that got locked in the canyon, had to cut his arm off.
Right.
That he knew how to do it.
You don't imagine that you would do that, but if it's your last shot.
It took him 3 days to figure out, to actually come up with that enough will to do that.
Right.
To cut off his arm.
It's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, cutting off my arm would be worse than dislocating my shoulders.
Dislocating your shoulder, yeah.
Perhaps if it came down to it, I would do that as well. But I mean, so that's the
so you
thing,
could do it. You could do it, but I don't think you would.
That you don't think I can do it, but
I'm saying that's something you wouldn't do. Yeah, there'd be no reason for it. It's a silly enough thing. Getting out of a straitjacket you're never going to be put in one necessarily. The best way to get out of a straitjacket is never get in one. So yeah,
actually,
I could do that. There's never going to be a reason that anyone will have to straitjacket me, so it won't matter.
Okay, so what if somebody did put me in a straitjacket though, and it wasn't a medical professional? It was some
What if
psychopath.
It was some psychopath that got a hold of you and said, "Here's your new life. Welcome."
Right.
Could you figure your way out?
I probably would just go along with it for a little while, because dislocating my shoulders to get out of it would be a last-ditch effort, not a first-ditch effort.
Not the first thing you did. Well, I don't know. Now that that's in your brain, I bet if you actually did that, you'd think, this is my only way out. So I'm going to start working on it right now. I'm going to start loosening up my shoulder, loosening up the ligaments when he's not watching me. Let's see if I can pop it. I'm going to make it pop. And then I'm going to know that I can do it and get it enough room that I can get it over my head.
Yeah. So straitjacket is a bad example. The example that I was trying to not say was, I bet I couldn't ever, no matter how much I wanted to, ejaculate sperm.
Okay. I bet you couldn't. There are things you're not equipped for, right?
Right.
Things you're not equipped for.
I don't think that I can do that. It's not something that I think I can do if I just put my mind to it, But there's the other thing where males can lactate if they needed to.
Okay.
So could my body, if I was the last person on earth and I thought about it enough, if I meditated for hours, days on it, could my body suddenly start creating sperm?
Okay. Suddenly, probably not. I watched a movie yesterday, a video about trees yesterday, about where they get their bulk from. And actually the largest bulk of a tree doesn't come from the roots. This thing was built up that it comes from the roots. It doesn't come from the roots, it comes from carbon dioxide. Everything it grows, the carbon and the oxygen that it used to grow and build itself, build its bulk, comes from the air. 95% comes from the air. 5% comes from the water that comes up. But the water that comes up is what gets dissipated in oxygen. So the water from the ground gets sent out in oxygen. Everything that comes from the carbon and the CO2 from the air that it eats is what creates the tree. And there's this thing called, I can't think of the term, like lycopene or something like that. There's some thing in the tree that allows it to do that process and grow huge that didn't exist millions of years ago. And what the thing is, it did develop the ability to grow tall and to grow 30 feet, 1,000 feet in the air, 100 feet in the air, whatever it grows. It developed that because of this lycopene. Let's call it that. I don't know what the term is. Maybe I'll find it and actually type it in. But that developed after the era that trees didn't have it. They started to grow, but they couldn't withstand something that didn't happen I guess, yeah, actually they started to grow, they learned how to grow, but then they weren't able to be assimilated by, that's right, they developed this thing. Here's what the story is. Had to remember it.
Okay.
They developed this lycosine stuff, whatever it is, that allows them to grow tall. They grew tall, but there were no bacteria or animals that could eat them, that could eat it. And so when the tree fell, it was there. It could not decay. It would not decay because there's nothing that could eat that. It took 100 million years and that's where our coal reserves and the coal reserves come from those plants, those trees, in that time frame that got compressed and made it turn into coal because they couldn't be assimilated, eaten. Bacteria couldn't eat them. They couldn't decompose. So they didn't decompose.
There was nothing to decompose them.
Yeah, nothing could decompose them. So that new element that was created in that tree in evolution science, let's say, created a product that couldn't be eaten. And then it took 100 million years for the bacteria to evolve enough to be able to eat that and decay it. And now a tree cannot create coal because there's enough things that are decaying the thing that's created. So from your point, that idea, quickly you couldn't generate semen, but over 100 million years of women only on the earth, semen could be generated because it would be a necessity.
Yeah. I mean, it would take a really long time.
It'd have to be one generation. After one generation, you'd have to figure out a way to do that. Or everyone would die off. So over time.
So that's something that I myself can't do.
There are living organisms though that are that way. I forgot what's the name of the thing? You've got male and female in the same body. You can procreate.
Is it like
anthropomorphic?
Androgynous?
It's not androgynous. That's not known.
Not that.
Anthropomorphic, perhaps.
Anyway, we know what we're talking about, so we don't have to give it a name.
They can procreate just within themselves. You don't need a male and female. The male and female is in the same body and can do that.
Yeah.
Like many flowers, some flowers need a male and female tree. Most flowers are procreating themselves. They're creating
themselves. Yeah, there's some blackberries that grow kind of near me that I was going to grow my own blackberry bushes from. And I could take berries. Berries from only one bush and plant them, and they would grow, but they wouldn't be able to survive much longer than just that first growth. They wouldn't produce fruit because they need pollen from another blackberry bush that's not from itself. And so in order to grow blackberries and produce fruit, you need seeds from one plant, but you need seeds from a completely different plant from a different area so that when they grow and they flower, they can pollinate each other and then they will grow fruit. Whether they're, male, or they turn into species A and species B. It's not male and female, but like they need to be cross-pollinated. You have to have two different plants.
Yeah. That's like pear trees. I know pear trees, you have a male or a female tree. You have to have them both. If you don't have them both, you're not going to, both in proximity to each other. They don't have to be next to each other. But the bees have to transmit the pollen from one tree to the next. And then both will produce. They both produce. They're not, they don't have one that's just a drone tree. But you have to have the pollen from the other tree.
The second tree can't be a sprout from that first tree. Like it can't be identical tree DNA from that first one. Otherwise, it's like a horse and a donkey produces a mule, and then or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I can achieve any goal except for those that my physical limitations prohibit me from achieving.
Right. Seeing behind you. I mean, that's an easy one. You can't have an eye in the back of your head.
Yes, I can't grow one in the back of my head. Maybe someday, I can have one implanted and it can actually work, but we don't know what's going to happen in the medical future.
Yeah, right. They haven't done that. They're working on hooking your computer up to your brain.
More important things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I wonder if it's a sign that I'm a psychopath is I distrust all compliments that I receive because I think the giver of the compliment knows that it will make me feel good to hear the compliment. And so therefore they're only giving me the compliment because they want me to feel good.
They're manipulating me with this compliment.
Yeah, right.
And so I refuse to be manipulated.
You suggested a couple of weeks ago that one of your friends that doesn't know me said, your daughter's smart, isn't she? Right? Or something like that.
Right.
Because they had listened to one of our episodes. And I don't think that's real. I think maybe he was saying that to make you feel good about your daughter and also to make me feel good. Like it's not a genuine compliment.
What's the question? Discounting the opinions of others?
Yeah, I distrust all compliments.
To distrust all compliments. And that's a status of psychopathy then, perhaps.
Right. But I accept criticisms as true. If someone has a criticism of me, then I'm like, they're being completely honest about this. But I think it's because nobody would say something negative about somebody else. Honest, like not honest. They would be honest. It's an honest negative opinion of me, and they wouldn't be like intentionally malicious, even though they don't feel that negative feeling. Right? Does that make sense?
So it's okay if people criticize you, and you can accept that.
I accept that as honest and true.
Do you have ever any reason to tell someone thank you? Would thank you be a response that comes out of your brain towards anyone?
With negative criticism or positive feedback?
Wait, anytime. Have you ever told anyone thank you? I mean, are you psychotic or something?
Oh no, I say it all the time. I feel it immediately. My immediate feeling, my reaction that I feel is positive. Like, oh, you really mean that. But then I think about it the next day, then I'm like, no, they probably didn't actually mean that.
If you analyze it, after you analyze the thing that was told you. So I'm just imagining someone gives you a compliment, me a compliment, someone a compliment, and the person that received the compliment says thank you, because that's conscientious. It's the thing you're supposed to do, is respond to that compliment. Thank you. But then you think about it and you discount it because they were just trying to get something. They're trying to schmooze me for some reason or manipulate me to do this or that. And now I don't trust them anymore.
Yeah. Well, I don't trust that they said that compliment.
That compliment. I don't trust that compliment.
And maybe I don't trust it because maybe I think about that. When I'm giving someone a compliment, I think, what would they most like to hear right now?
Do you actually think that?
I do.
That's a conscience.
I do think that.
You use your conscience to say what would help them best. I don't know that I use my conscience that way. So I guess I do somewhat. I have another filter on top of that, though. It's not just necessarily what I think that would do good because of my religious background and understanding and predisposition. I wonder what is the Spirit recommending I say as well. Not just what's going to make them feel good. What do I think is going to make them feel good? I may not know why I'm saying what I'm saying, but I feel like saying it, and I feel like it from a standpoint that hopefully I'm directed by the Spirit to say it. And that's the way I believe it's going to be a good thing, and so I'm going to tell her, I think that you've got wonderful looking hair. But I would never say that. We talked about your hair before. Naturally curly, or, you have to work on it a little bit. But I don't think I would ever say that to a girl on the street, a woman on the street, a female, anywhere. I would never compliment her hair.
What, did you compliment a man on his hair?
No, that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. It's too personal.
Okay.
So that's not where I would go. But to say you're smart, you're intelligent, I would say that to people. I'd say, I appreciate your intelligent conversation.
Well, yeah. I remember one time you watched one of my siblings' friends fall, and he rolled. And you compliment him over and over again for the way he rolled when he fell. He didn't just fall flat on his face. He actually recovered himself, and you thought that was amazing.
Right. Because he understood the principle of recovery and not just getting hurt. A victim would just get hurt. He took that and took an opportunity to, I don't remember the situation, but yeah, I know I've been impressed for my whole life about someone who knew how to roll.
Who can do that? Right. Yeah. So when you see something that really matters to you, hair doesn't matter to you, I
Right.
think.
Right. And yeah, and it tends on to the psychotic. What are you worrying about my hair for, freak?
Well, maybe that's what you think. That's what you think. But, if I was in a thrift store a few years ago and somebody said, your hair looks amazing. And I was like, oh, yeah, thanks. That feels
Okay.
really good. She asked me what I did to make it look so good. And I was happy to tell her that I didn't have to do anything that day to make it look that good. It just looked that good, you know? So that felt good. And you know what? Thinking about that, I don't think that that was a manipulative
You didn't discount it.
compliment. No,
Yeah.
I think
You
that
didn't
was
discount
genuine.
that one because it was spur of the moment. It was just a shock.
Somebody that doesn't know me, but
Right.
has no skin in the game. It was just someone there noticing something, I guess.
Yeah. You just happened to be in the store and yeah. Well, that's good.
Hmm.
This conflict, well, we're talking psychopathy in regard to compliments then.
Yeah. Am I a psychopath because I think about the compliments that I give before I give them? Is that a sign, do you think, that I know that I'm not a psychopath because considering all of the points, I'm more on the not psychopathic side of the
You're
spectrum.
closer to that
But is
spectrum.
that one thing that could move me closer to the yes, psychopath?
You're trying to identify the right way to live. Could I live better if I did something different in regard to my thoughts to other people?
Maybe, yeah.
My thoughts of what to say. If I spoke better, if I gave better compliments, more sincere compliments. Here's the other thought that I had on that. It's not necessarily what you're saying. It's how you receive it too. I was thinking, since we went through Christmas just now, Nora's Christmas Gift, that show, a story about Nora, who was a big charitable person and always giving and giving and giving. And she was losing something. Something was missing in her life because she never was able to receive. And that's the point of that movie, was joy to the world, let earth receive her king. So it was a story about receiving, being able to be served, instead of just always about service, always about helping everybody else. Let someone help you for a change and accept it. Be grateful that someone was able to help you, that you can receive gifts as well, or compliments or assistance. And maybe there's a psychopathic issue of not being able to receive a compliment.
Right.
An anecdotal story from my youth, from my childhood. I was in college. Karen and Kathy, two girls that were associates of mine.
Very generic names, probably not even their names.
That is their true names, really. And I don't know their last. I do know their last names, but I'm not going to tell you that.
Okay.
Karen gave me a compliment. She said, you're whatever I don't remember the compliment. Whatever the compliment was, she handed me a compliment in presence of Kathy. So Karen said this, and then I said, well, you're, and I complimented her right back. And Kathy immediately, well, I don't know that she did it immediately, but she did reprimand me for that. She says, when someone gives you a compliment, idiot, don't turn it right back around and give them that. That discounts everything. Don't just tell them, well, you did great too. Thank you is the appropriate word, Kathy says. If someone compliments you, say thank you. I never knew that. So that shows how psychopathic I was. I didn't even have the conscience to say thank you without being trained by Kathy to do that.
Yeah. Some people are just really good at being people, and some people just need to be trained a little bit.
Right. So she trained me a little bit, and I remember that, and it was eventful. And it shocked me that I didn't know how to do that. And she said, this is the way you're supposed to do that. You say thank you, and you accept the compliment, receive it. So.
Yeah.
And apparently I hurt Karen's feelings. I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't.
Or maybe Kathy just thought that if that happened to her, her feelings would be
felt hurt. Yeah,
and so
maybe.
she's giving that to Karen.
Yeah,
like
maybe Karen didn't care.
When people do this to you, you need to feel hurt. She's training Karen too.
Yeah, maybe. There was another statement too, that the golden rule: Do unto others as you had others do unto you. But what if you're a psychopath?
And you like being hit.
And you like that. Yeah. It's pointed out in a podcast I was listening to. Well, my wife and I were listening to it recently, and they pointed that out. They said, that's the golden rule doesn't work that way, because the guy honestly says, well, this is how I want people to treat me. Honestly, I'd rather they just tell me point blank. I'd love it if they'd just tell me what's up, as opposed to they're trying to placate me or make me feel good or give me a soft answer. I want to hear the hard truth. So it's not the way that you want to be received. You've got to talk to other people. The conscience means you're thinking of them, empathy. You're empathetic to them, not just to your own needs, not to your own self. That you would have others do to you, do you even so to them. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily work. That's not the whole law. The whole rule doesn't work that way. You have to have empathy and compassion.
Yeah, I don't think that's maybe it has biblical ties, but I mean, it says here on the Wikipedia page, in the Abrahamic religions, it's in Leviticus 19:18.
Okay.
Love your neighbor as yourself is what it says. And maybe somebody...
Whatsoever you should do to others, even so to them. Whatsoever you would have others do to you, that's a Christ statement.
In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the law and the prophets. I don't know. You can't trust anything in the Bible to be exactly as Jesus said.
Right,
so.
Right. We know about that translation.
Nobody knows what he was saying.
So they did their best of writing it down and identifying it,
but it's all subjective. The people who wrote it down were like, I think he really meant this, so that's what I'm going to write down.
And then translation.
Like Jesus could have been telling everybody that there's great big aliens going to come down from the sky and we're all going to be taken up into their spaceships. And they're like, what is a spaceship? You know what? I think we're going to call that heaven.
That's a good word for it. Heaven. And left on the earth, it's going to be hell. It'd be hell if they leave you here in the fire. When the spaceship takes off, it's going to burn everything underneath it.
So Jesus was really a Scientologist. Just kidding.
The thing we do know is that words are hard to figure out. And that's why we talk about psychopathy and trying to break it down from the word. Anything you think about that causes damage to someone else, anything you think about and do that causes damage to someone else is a state of psychopathy, because you thought about it, you did it, and there was some damage.
If it damages yourself, can that also count? Like if your self-esteem is
dis-ease,
being damaged?
It's actually disease. Pathy is disease, but it's dis-ease. It's anything that causes something to be shaken or just any out of ease, not a wholesome, off kilter.
All right.
But those words.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily matter if these things that I think about myself are psychopath or not. Is it doing me good or is it doing me bad? And that is the determiner of whether I should change or not. That's the conscience.
Using a conscience in it, a moral conscience then. Maybe we should talk about that at some point. Is conscience only a moral conscience, or is there some other type of conscience that you can use?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's right or wrong. It's whether it serves the needs of the most people. The thing I wanted to mention about words with the Bible, the thing we know about the Bible and the words of Christ is that it was in Arabic and Hebrew first. And the translations from there that Tyndall and Wycliffe did, they chose their words, and generally they've selected the same words. Now there's all kinds of translations saying, no, I think that the original Hebrew meant this. And so you've got different translations of the Bible right now, and what the supposed words or intentions were based on what someone nowadays is interpreting a language 2,000 years ago meant by what word they used. And that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
We can't even know that that's the right interpretation if you have all kinds of documents looking at the word Isha or whatever it is.
Right. I mean,
in Hebrew.
You'd hope that you'd have God on your side to tell you whether you're choosing the right word or not. You'd hope that, right? God would be, then the Spirit would have his hand on your shoulder and be like, nope, not that word. Nope, not that one. Okay, yes, this one is good.
And that's the definition in the Book of Mormon of the interpreted by the gift and power of God. That's how that was done.
Right.
Apparently. My testimony is that it was that way. Others say, apparently, some God was giving him the way to translate all those Reformed Egyptian characters into this book. And how do we know it's right? Because the gift and power of God, what you just described, he had his hand on his shoulder saying, this is what it means. Whether you're looking at the record or not,
right,
this is what it means. So all these current challenges of staring into a hat and translating a record that's under a cloth next to you.
Yeah, you are a very faithful person to continue in your religion, knowing these challenges
we have no idea
are
how
present.
Any of that happened. Anyway, still, because there were two people in the room, and it wasn't you or I.
Right.
So that's the definition of faith, not knowing, but still accomplishing.
Not knowing, but still accomplishing.
Accomplishing, moving, advancing instead of accomplishing. Accomplishing says it's going to complete. You're not completing anything. You're just advancing. Continuing to move forward in your belief system, which is what we all do.
So that is what we all do. So you had taken these psychopathy tests. Why did you take tests yourself?
I wanted to confirm that everyone is a psychopath, and I am everyone.
That's what you want? Okay, that was your goal. So with that bias going into it, you answered the question.
You can only answer it one way. I mean, they're easy. Start personality test. So I'm just going to go through one because there's enough and they're free and they're there. And I did this with my wife. She went through it, and clearly she was not on the spectrum whatsoever.
Because she's got those biases about herself.
Yeah. So these questions, I don't like this test. Improving and refining systems or processes is a priority for me. Yeah.
That's hard to understand.
I don't like this test. It's like you were looking at.
You have to really think about that one.
I'm going to drop this test and find another one, find the one that I did on Haywise, because I think it was cool. Haywise was an interesting site. Okay. Get back to that one. Haywise. I like their questions, and they're just saying and they've got a lot of tests on there. They got hundreds of them. So here's a question. What crime are you most likely to commit? I like these tests. Most likely to commit.
Okay.
Are you looking at Haywise?
Out of these options, I think speeding. I can't answer that here. That's an option you can pick. I'm not willing to admit the crime that I'm willing to do on this online test.
Yeah,
so
I can't
I'm
answer
not
that
going
here.
To answer.
I've already done these crimes. That's someone that's already done all of these crimes. I'm not telling you what I've done. I know Big Brother's watching me.
Most likely to commit, though, yes.
So you're going through this test? Let's just do the test right now and see how it comes out.
Yes.
So, speeding is the only thing I can come up with. I'm not likely to shoplift. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speed.
Okay, and the other one was blowing through a crosswalk, and I think life is too precious to try to do that.
Blowing through a crosswalk
Though
means driving,
speeding
right?
doesn't faze me.
Yeah. So continue to the next question.
Do you tell little white lies or big whoppers? I don't think I ever tell big whoppers.
I only lie when I need to spare someone's feelings. When I think it's important to them that I lie.
We're manipulative in that way, aren't we?
So that's my answer. Was that your answer?
You can't choose I never lie. Yeah, that's my answer. But I never lie isn't a choice.
It's which one is closest. And that's why I like the way this test was done that way. So the next one. Do you like gory movies? And they didn't have a hell no on there, so I couldn't answer that way.
Yeah, I'm choosing they're not my thing because I don't think that I look for gore when I'm choosing a movie.
They're not my thing. I wouldn't do that. Would anyone say that you're a control freak?
I will admit it. That's my choice. I'll admit that people would say I'm a control freak.
And I only put my ex, which I don't really have an ex.
You've never had a girlfriend before you married Mom?
That's the only person that would think that I was a control freak, is the person that was close enough to me.
Yeah, I think when it said my ex would say that would imply anyone that used to be in your life that isn't in your life anymore.
Yeah, could be.
You know, I feel like I'm better at control.
So what's the next one?
A stray puppy. What would you do if you found a stray puppy? I actually have 2 stray dogs in my backyard right now. and I'm not doing anything. Pretend I didn't see it. That's what I would do.
That's what I do. Pretend I didn't see it. Here's the problem.
Oh, but no, these are adult dogs. If it was a puppy, I would probably take it to a shelter. If I found an actual
you can answer
puppy.
that way. I answered or pretend I didn't see it. I would just go along my day and let the puppy survive. He's out there, and I think the wild animals are in the wild, like cats, dogs, whatever they are. I'm not gonna.
It's there for a reason.
Yeah, and it's living its life. Let it live its life.
Have you ever been in a fist fight?
It's come close to blows, but no, I said. And we described that.
I've only been in a fist fight with my siblings.
So you can put siblings.
When we were young.
Yeah. I couldn't even put siblings. I've never been in a fist fight with siblings.
But you've been angry enough with someone else that you almost...
No.
I think you told me that story.
Yeah, I told you the story of how I talked the fist fight to not start. It worked. So psychologically.
Yeah, so that's a come close to blows, but no.
Yeah, that's the only time I've ever come close to that. Yeah, which serial killer you don't know the most about?
Jeffrey Dahmer, just because there was that Netflix documentary about him. It wasn't a documentary, it was a dramatized thing. Yeah. But yeah, it was really interesting.
The question.
I liked it.
So yeah, you can put that. You delved into one.
But I don't avoid it, and I don't know a lot about them, and I only know Charles Manson because of his name. That's all.
Yeah,
I know
never
nothing
studied
about
his life.
Really what he did.
See, I've studied the lives of 4 or 5 of them, or 6. So I said I have to say I know a lot about a lot of them.
Okay. I think you're going to have to say that.
So that's my answer. Yours is just Jeffrey Dahmer. You have and that may be why they put those names. It's someone a long time ago and someone recently that's really everyone knows. If that's all you know, that's where you are. Rhymes yours keep on hand. You're sage and crystals, I bet. You could be.
No, I don't keep sage and crystals on hand all the time. It's either batteries and duct tape or lip balm and pocket change. But batteries and duct tape are emergency survival. I'm prepared, but lip balm and pocket change is just, I have to have that in my pocket. Otherwise,
something that you're using.
I'm suffering.
You might suffer
because I don't have lip balm.
Which way do you choose that one?
So I choose C.
Mine is,
I guess, because most everybody has batteries and duct tape in their house somewhere.
So you chose the lip balm and pocket change.
I don't make sure that it's not in my purse.
I took batteries and
around
duct
with
tape.
me everywhere.
None of those other things mean anything to me. I have no value in any of those. I don't suffer because I don't have any of those things. But I would if I didn't have duct tape. I'd suffer.
Yeah, I think earplugs and hand lotion is a suggestion that you prioritize comfort. It's
personal
too loud
comfort
in here, so I need earplugs, and my hands are dry, so I need to.
Okay.
Right.
What would you eat on a desert island?
My fellow survivors. I would not.
As
eat
you
them.
put on your
I think that's something I wouldn't do.
As you put on your lip balm, because you were thinking about it and you wanted to be comfortable.
Because I was thinking about it. Yes. Now where's my lotion? Because my hands feel dry. Fish, coconuts, any berry I can find, or cannibalism. I think. Well, you know what? What if my fellow survivors happen to be like a pig and a cow? I would eat them.
You can devise that. It's your island.
I could. I don't think that's what they mean by this question, though.
Because fish is on there.
Is what I would choose.
I selected fish. It's something that you'd have to figure out a way to find it and get it, capture it.
And do you yell at people to get your point across? Oh, let's see. Okay. So I do try not to yell at anyone, but I do like to quietly seethe as well. I don't always yell. I'm not always yelling at people to do anything, and I don't yell when I'm in traffic. So I think I'm choosing quietly seethe. What do you choose?
I try not to yell at anyone. I don't seethe at all. I mean, that's an easy answer for me. I don't care.
You have such control.
Such
you don't
such
care. That's the thing. It's not control. It's
such
just like
non-conscience about me that I don't. It doesn't bother me one bit what other people say.
Right.
Okay. Do you make a big deal out of small problems? No, I nip things in the bud right away. No. Do you make a big thing out of a small problem? See,
I'd say I nip things in the bud right away.
No is not an answer for that. I put drama is not my thing.
Drama is not my thing, is that?
I just put drama is not my thing.
I think you'd pick that.
I'm disassociated.
Considering that you choose not
I'm
to yell.
disassociated from all of it. And you'll seethe about it, and then you'll nip it right in the bud very quickly.
Yes.
Give a quick answer.
Well, I mean, if it's a small thing, I don't let it become a mountain.
Yeah.
I don't let the molehill become a mountain. I just take care of it right now.
What's your pain tolerance like?
Pain tolerance. I watched a YouTube short, a lady who went on a hiking trip, and she landed on her wrist, and it hurt a little bit, but they wrapped it up, and then she went to the doctor to see, like, was it sprained? Do I need to wear, like, a brace or something? They're like, this is broken. How are you not screaming right now? She just had, like, a week-long trip after breaking it. And so she's got an amazing pain tolerance there.
Okay.
Like,
well, that's good.
That's interesting. Sometimes I wonder if I have a high pain tolerance. Like, am I suffering from appendicitis right now because it hurts a little bit in my lower right back? Or is it that just, like, because I sat weird for 2 hours? I don't know.
And does it matter?
It doesn't matter as long as I don't die. But
so how do you? A hangnail can put me down.
How do I answer this one?
I think I can.
No.
I can handle a lot of pain, or pain is a pleasure sometimes.
I think I can handle a lot of pain. It's not that I think that I can't, but I know that I think I can handle.
I had to go to the answer.
I don't find pleasure in it.
I've talked about 2 or 3 times in these conversations. Pain is a pleasure sometimes. Sometimes I enjoy it. I don't want to get rid of it.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's a sure sign that you're a psychopath. Right there. That's the one thing.
If your ex had a run of bad luck, how would you react?
If my last ex, and they have to specify your last ex because they're someone that's not in your life anymore, but they were close to you.
Your most recent.
It's not my business. That's what I choose.
Gosh, and I identified empathetically. I would still care about their position.
Yeah, but you wouldn't try to help.
I don't know. I would try to help. Yeah, because they chose their spot too. Yeah, so it's not like I'm still responsible. I think that's why I chose empathetically.
You made your bed, now lay in it.
If you really need something, I'll help you, but you don't necessarily need anything. You can survive. Last person you argued with, describe you. This was easy for me, too.
Condescending, logical, loud, or cutthroat. I think logical is mine.
Condescending. Anyone I argue with says...
I could just run downstairs and ask him real quick to see what he would say.
Was I condescending or logical in our argument? Condescending, you idiot. I use idiot for every other euphemism that there is out there.
Right. You idiot. So you picked condescending? Is that what...
But you took the other one.
What does condescending mean?
It means you think you're better than me.
Like you're more important than...
You're taking the high road and you're telling me I'm on the low road. You're always talking down to me.
I used to argue that way, but I've since learned that that's not a good way to argue. And so I try to argue from logic more than from I'm better.
Okay.
My choices are better.
Yeah.
Sometimes I turn out not to be right. So that's okay.
Yeah. I'm just going off of actual history. That's the thing I ever hear. I never hear you're being logical in that
actual
argument.
History.
Never would my arguing partner say that.
Okay. You never hear that.
What are you selfies like? See, why did they make that grammatical error?
I know. It's a signal. Well, what are you selfies like?
Why would they do that?
Really, what are your selfies like?
And then they put the picture of an Afro-American, a black girl. What are you selfies like? And what is that? The way she would actually say it? I don't know.
Stereotypical. The bathroom she's in is kind of nice, though, so it's probably not meaning anything there. Anyway, okay. You don't take selfies.
I only do travel.
You make other people take pictures of you.
The last one I ever did was under that thing in that's probably maybe the only selfie I've ever taken.
And that's just because I told you had to.
Someone required me to.
It's not a selfie because you weren't holding the phone yourself.
That's right. I've never done a selfie. So travel photos, that's going to be...
Travel
that's the
photos,
closest
I
can
think,
get.
is appropriate for
There's
you.
no nuance of my selfie.
Yeah, I don't know what I would choose, actually.
You have to choose one.
I don't post pictures of anything, even of my dog.
So you have to pick the one that's closest.
But I suppose if I picked one...
Do you care about the lighting?
Travel photos, that's where it would go.
Okay.
Nope. In fact, the worse the lighting, the better, because then it looks genuine.
Okay.
Like I'm not trying to look good.
Can you tell what others are thinking?
Can you tell what others are thinking? Sometimes I think that I can, but I know that I'm not a mind reader. I know that I can't. But sometimes I'm like, I know what they're thinking.
I'm going to answer this one. I don't know what I answered last time, really. The closest to what I'm thinking. Only closest to me, but I wish I could. I have better things to do than read minds. I think I'm going to select that one. That's more like what I actually feel.
Can you tell what others are thinking? It's not that, are you right? Is it saying, are you right in your guess of what others are thinking? No, but I wish I could. I choose that. How many questions are there? This is.
I think we got to be almost done. Are you a rule breaker?
Are you a rule breaker? No.
Ahead. If it's fun, I will. No. I try not to break many rules. I make a lot of rules.
That's my answer too.
And I don't break things.
You're a rule maker.
I can make a rule. They're not meant to be broken, but if I can amend it, I certainly will amend it and I won't break my amendment.
There you go.
What's your sense of humor like? Dark and twisted, goofy and full of puns, dirty and nasty, highbrow and deep. I always think about jokes. I don't know what highbrow means necessarily.
You do?
But a joke has to mean something if I'm going to keep it.
Yeah.
So it's certainly...
Maybe highbrow and deep are like inside jokes where, the people that you're with, you would crack a joke that only they would understand. And it's not like a pun where people anywhere would understand. Okay. But you're not making dead baby jokes and you're not talking about not safe for work topics.
Yeah, or dead baby jokes. That's dark and twisted. Is that what you tried to say?
That's okay. Dark and twisted. Yes, dead baby jokes.
I don't know any of those.
I worked with somebody who only knew dead baby jokes.
Dark and twisted.
That was his favorite thing to tell. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not going on smoke break with you ever again.
Yeah. Okay. So take your eyebrow. How big is your friend circle? I had to do a lot of acquaintances because I do socialize in some big circles. When you tell stories, do you exaggerate? Yep. This is your pathological liar question. You should have.
Oh, yeah. Exaggeration.
I take a few liberties. I have to say I don't know specific situations, but I don't consider that liberties are lies.
Yeah, liberties. And you can only trust your memory so far. So some things you actually do end up making up anyway.
Which one of these things make you angriest? Going wrong food order, gestures vaguely. See, getting cut off in traffic. None of those things matter to me. Wrong food order, cut off in traffic, people who abandon animals. Definitely not the animals thing.
Well, okay, so which one would make you more angry than the other ones?
Yeah, but then gestures vaguely. So I'm choosing gestures vaguely. I don't know if that means I gesture vaguely or if someone's gesturing to me vaguely. But I'm just gesturing vaguely because it's in quotes.
Is it like somebody not finishing their,
I don't know. Angriest.
As I gesture vaguely.
Yeah.
Did that make you mad when I just did it?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's not when gestures vague. So maybe I don't know the answer. That I'm still going to select the gestures vaguely because I don't get angry. Try to make me angry. Go ahead. My arguing partner tries it all the time. And it upsets worse when I laugh about it.
What's the creepiest thing? Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't do that.
Creepiest thing you've ever done.
What's the creepiest thing you've ever done?
Social media, hid in the bushes to see what someone's doing, broke into someone's phone, refused to incriminate myself. I refuse to incriminate myself. No. I don't mind what anyone knows.
I think I've both spied on someone's social media, which it's public. You may as well, right?
Everyone does that.
Hack into anything. You don't have to. It's all there. And then I've also hid in the bushes to see what someone was doing.
And creepiest, right?
I don't think spying on someone's social media is creepy. I think hiding in the bushes is more creepy than the other one.
Yeah, and that was my answer, was hiding in the bushes to see what someone's doing. So creeping around. That's the way
I've never broken into someone's phone.
Never broken into someone's phone. What do you struggle with most? Communication, setting boundaries, saving money. RBF, resting face. I had to look that up.
You had to look that up?
Yeah.
You could just say resting angry face.
Yeah, some resting angry face.
Oh, struggling with communication. I think communication is mine.
I'm going to say setting boundaries.
I struggle most with that out of those four.
Is where I select. Okay, what are most of your dreams like? I don't remember a lot of them. That's definitely not me. Whimsical, confusing, disturbing.
I remember a lot of my dreams.
So you can't answer that one either. They're either disturbing, whimsical, or confusing. And they don't mean insightful. So I had to use confusing because they're insightful. They're not. I'm learning from my dreams. I'm not enjoying them as far as just or being nightmared by them.
This might be why Mom says that you're stupid, is because you're taking too much out of your dreams.
Maybe.
You're not a visionary, man.
Go ahead, ask me. I'll tell you. Gosh, we've got to come to the end of these questions soon. How many times per day? Once or twice a week. When I see something, I don't text much of anyone. I think I'll answer that way.
Is this suggesting that you're just reaching out with no reason? Because I text.
How close you are to your people. That's probably what that is. Not no reason. Whether you're conscientious about your relationships in this current day world where texting is very important.
Okay. So what do you choose?
I don't text much of anyone. So that's what I choose.
Well, you've sent me screenshots of things that people have texted. Like, you do text
when it's necessary.
People.
I've texted you 3 times in the last month. But my significant other, I've texted
other people.
0. She's texted me 7 or 8 times. So someone who is not a psychopath will text normal things when they think about something, even if they don't like them.
Okay, I think we can also say, like, going in to say hi or calling, like any reach out for, what does the Gottmans call it? Bids for connection. Any attempts for connection. Anything that you do. Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't have to necessarily be texting. Like, if your best friend actually is Mom, how many times do you connect with her intentionally per day?
If it was phrased differently.
Yeah. That's how I would phrase it.
See, the answer there, maybe once or twice a week. No, at least once a day. Only when I see something that reminds me of them. Only when. See, and even with that, only when, it's got to be at least once a day. That's the only positive answer. That's the most frequent answer you can make in this. So
yeah. Do you
I'd
do
say
that?
at least once a day.
At least once a day, do you reach out? That's what I would choose too, with this new interpretation
of
the
if you choose
question.
it that way, but texting. I think texting was used specifically for that reason, though. Are you part of this new mentality or not? What's your anxiety level right now? 0. Calm and collected. See, they do have a 0 answer there. That's nice.
A little nervous, anxious situationally, really nervous, or just fine?
I'm a little anxious that this has
fine.
to be
I'm calm and
finished
collected.
Fairly quickly.
You're starting. Your anxiety is increasing with every click.
What do you like when you're in a large crowd? I'm observant in a large crowd. Usually partying, ready to run. I don't get overstimulated or ready to run, but I do observe people watching, if at least that. Are you much of a conspiracy theorist? Of course. I don't know if any conspiracy theories. Okay, there's truth in all of them. I select the rabbit hole. I go down a rabbit hole. There is truth in all of them. That's true as well, but it's more true that I enjoy it periodically.
Yeah, that you go down it. Yeah. I choose there's truth in all of them. I don't think that I specifically seek further information. I'm just like, okay, so something about that made someone say this.
Never sought revenge. Never, only once, more than once. I don't want to talk about it. Have I ever sought revenge? A normal person seeks revenge.
I think I'm going to discount any teenage things I've done against siblings, because that doesn't...
I mean, that was a year or two ago.
Does anybody... That wasn't a year or two ago.
It was a while ago.
It was like a decade or two ago. There was something I've done.
Never.
In revenge, but I don't think
I just answer never. I don't seek revenge. I don't plot for it.
Me too. I'm not a plan of retaliation. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of retaliation.
Not a fan of planning retaliation. Is it easy for others to get to know you? Rarely happens. Extremely to everyone. People close too fast. No. Rarely happens. No. Extremely open. I think I have to answer I'm extremely open. More so, people tell me you shouldn't tell people that. You shouldn't talk about that. Why not?
Oh.
Why not? Well, we had that privacy conversation. You and I had that privacy conversation. And clearly, I was more on the side of
you have no
not
privacy.
Worrying about privacy. So I had to select that. What one do you select?
I think I think I choose, I don't let many people get close to me. I keep most everything, everyone at an arm's length.
Yeah.
Like, everyone, you can know me up to this point.
Okay.
That's it.
So let's see what your test came back at. It's the answer now.
Oh, I'm a sociopath.
Are you a sociopath? See, on this one, I'm normal.
That's what it says.
My answers were normal this time.
Really?
The fact that you're questioning yourself gives you bonus points. From what we see, you're completely normal. You might think too much, but you're definitely not a sociopath. Okay, what's your description say?
Interesting. It says, although you show fewer psychopathic tendencies than most, you fall well within the range of sociopath. In case you've ever wondering why.
Yeah, see, a grammatical error
in
again.
Case you are ever, I know, in case you're ever wondering why you don't learn from your mistakes, here's your sign.
So, this is maybe a true test.
I'm a sociopath. I should get a shirt
I did only
made.
change one
I know,
or two answers.
Hey, wise. How many quiz does? Oh, it's got like all of these different quizzes. So this is just a quiz.
It's a quiz website. They have some fun quiz, but I like the way they formed their questions. I think it was cool. It was engaging.
Yeah.
So, heywise.com and their quizzical nature. So,
it says down further on the page, did you know you're probably not a psychopath? It says, as casually as we use terms like sociopath, psychopath, and other mental health disorders, the likelihood that you or anyone you know is actually dangerous or psychopathic is very slim. Only 1.2% of the population can be diagnosed with a psychopathic spectrum order, and only 0.03% of them are women.
Yeah. So even though you earned that based on your answers, you're really not a challenge to anybody.
I think I'm going to lean into it, actually. I think this is going to be the new me.
You're a psychopath? Okay, good.
Sociopath. We got to use the C. See, that's another thing. No, not psychopath, sociopath. That's part of it.
I think tendencies are pretty easy to find of psychopathy, but to have all of them and to be danger to society, 1.8%, 2% of people. I think Jordan Peterson speaks so that he says no more than 3% of the population are psychopaths, so you're not going to be in that realm.
It's very low, right? You have to really be doing some things to actually be a problem.
All of them are in prison.
Yeah. Well, the ones that are old enough to be caught doing something, there's still many young children out there being stifled.
That have their tendencies and they're building it. They haven't shot up their school yet. Right.
Well, I mean, I do feel like I'm not actually in the danger zone, even though that test suggests it may be. But, that's just a test. I'm going to think what I think about myself, and you're going to think whatever you think about me, too.
And every other position in their point, let's say even 70% of them can think you're a psychopath. That doesn't mean you're a psychopath. Doesn't mean you're dangerous either. Psychopathy doesn't mean danger. It means dis-ease. The pathy part of it is a disease. You're not going to be easy for 70% of the people to be around, probably, maybe. Maybe even just depend on their political environment, with their political party. They may not agree with what your thoughts are, and that makes you a psychopath in relation to them. So that's why I'm just stating it's okay to be psychopathic. That is not
it's okay.
An offensive statement. That's just saying, I thought about what I'm doing. Thank you. It's a commendation that I've thought about what I'm doing. So you think I'm using my psyche. That's nice. I am. I'm using it.
I am. I've been working hard on that.
And the fact that it bothered you
lately,
that you're
all my life.
You're diseased because of it, that doesn't bother me one bit. It's not going to change my psychoanalytic analysis. I'm going to think the way I think, even if you're diseased by it.
Right. So the question now is there any reason to adjust? If someone else thinks you're a psychopath and you think you're not, should you actually step back and be like, if I want this person to be in my life, I should probably be a little bit more like what they want? Is that valid? Is that good to do? We talked about this for a good long time about a month ago, but the audio was so bad that we couldn't even edit it to be published.
That was one of those conversations that was too dark. You had too much dark, and you should have paid more attention to your selfie, my selfie.
That's right.
Too realistic.
We should have figured it
out.
Too
realistic, and wasn't a good conversation that could be recorded.
Yeah.
So should you pay attention to other people? That's communication. I received this answer from two people I think were smarter than me, but I would assume that they are, and that's the way I viewed them. They were in the mentor above me status, as opposed to equal or below. I wasn't helping them; they were helping me, and they said that tells me more. My answer, that tells me more about you than it does about me. When I said something to them, whatever it was, I don't really remember what I said anymore. I don't remember the context.
That sounds a little bit glib, like not maybe not glib, but you brush it off like, I don't care what you're saying, but you should care about what you're saying.
You should pay attention to the way you said that and what you said. It displays more about you than you're trying to hurt me with your statement or something,
So two people told you this on separate occasions?
Two different situations I'm aware of, but they just, indicate, be careful. The way I'm taking that, be careful of how you say something. So what you were saying, if someone says calls me a sociopath, that tells me more about them than it tells me about me. So I need to read it that way. But do I just glibly say back what that person told me? And maybe they should have reacted differently instead of, try to train me. But I don't know. I learned it. I learned their answer. They probably did change the way they operated with me as well from that point forward, because they learned something. They just identified I learned that. Well, like Kathy and Karen. Kathy identified something and she pointed it out and told me something about me, not about them. I was saying Karen did this good, but it was my fault, my error. So when they point out an error, should you change something? And I think you should.
Even if it says something about them, that they're saying it.
It says something about them. You can either glibly throw it back in their face and say, you just exposed yourself and here's how. Or you can say, they have this certain tendency. They're going to be upset every time I bring up politics. So I think it's good that I probably don't talk politics in their presence anymore. I'm going to learn that. Now, I did have a recent conversation with someone in regard to the presidential campaign and identified in the conversation that she was upset that Trump got elected. So I didn't push that conversation any further. I brought it right back to the market and said, this is the way the market is and this is what I expect. And the conversation ended okay. I don't know. I potentially could have offended her, but I don't know that I did. And hopefully I didn't. Hopefully I played it appropriately, hearing her response to that general query on how the election is playing in her brain.
Right. Yeah.
So, and from now on, I won't bring up politics in that conversation. I'll know that, hopefully.
Yeah, that person. You know more about that person now. Yeah. Everything someone says about us or does around us, I suppose, everything that everybody does informs how we are.
How we're received by them.
Going forward.
How we're received by them and what we should probably do going forward.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. All right.
But we don't need to worry about the title of psychopathy because and we don't need to claim anyone is a psychopath either. We don't need to
we don't need to worry people. If our neighbors are psychopaths
Yeah, don't label people on that term.
Do I need to worry if my kids are psychopaths or not? Because I'm kind of responsible for shaping them into who they become as adults.
Is your boy's name Jeffrey?
No,
well, then,
I specifically avoided that name for that reason.
Well, then that's easy. They're not psychopaths. The 1.3% of the people that are psychopaths are all named Jeffrey.
Ha. That's a baseless claim.
Okay. You are responsible for the way people act.
Yeah, I mean, I have more responsibility over the upbringing of my kids than I do over anything my neighbor does. And so it's not as much responsibility as I have over myself. I have the most responsibility for myself, but I have a little bit of responsibility for my kids. This is the tier 0, total control, maybe not.
Right.
But total responsibility for that little bit of responsibility for my tier 1 and how they turn out. I have no responsibility for my husband's behavior and how he is tomorrow or in the future anywhere, right?
Not necessarily, no. That's your tier 1 still. No responsibility.
It is my tier 1 still.
Yeah.
But as a parent, I do have some responsibility.
With your children.
For my kids. I mean, that's one of Jordan Peterson's rules is don't let your kids do things that make you not like them. You have a responsibility to do that.
You have to be active in that role of helping them understand how not to be unlikable. And you have that role, managing your manager. I forget how that came up in one of our last few conversations. You do have some responsibility to help other people operate appropriately around the world you see, I guess. You don't want them to be sociopaths either. And if you can help them not be a sociopath, point out to them, say, that tells me more about you than it tells about me, and it's not a good thing.
Right. If you can, though, if you know that you can, then you have the responsibility to do it.
I think that's the mentor role. If you can take a mentor role, you should. Then maybe something we can talk about at some point is when should you take a mentor role and when should you take a mentee role? Following and leading. When should you lead in the tier 2 environment? And if you can, even though you're the employee and the manager is the mentee, you can still offer appropriate information if you have it.
Yeah. Okay. That feels like an okay place to close it for now. Do you feel settled?
Yeah.
In this topic?
No, I'm okay. And I think we've talked through understanding that psychopathy is everywhere and it's not really not a major issue. And it's our job to help it not be a major issue in ourselves, our kids, our relations, everything. You don't have to necessarily point it out or label it, but it's being conscious.
And maybe for some people it's really easy to not let it be an issue. And some people it's a bit more of a struggle, but still it's your job to not.
And where we start out with the word conscience.
Don't
if they're
become
just
dangerous.
Operating without a conscience, you can help point out the conscientious way to live, perhaps calmly. Like Kathy did to me, she conscientiously explained to me, just throw a compliment back. You say thank you, you receive the compliment. So be more conscientious about your life instead of just knee-jerk. They throw a compliment at you, throw one back.
Right. Okay, next week, it's your topic. What do you have planned?
And we get to talk about, I've been thinking about mind control. I've had that on my mind, trying to control it for 60 some odd years now.
Oh, wow.
But it may breach on that, but mind control. So we're thinking about control of the mind or mind control, brain control. We'll bring up some interesting movies.
Brain control, mind control. Yeah, you have maybe you have some interesting things about that. Maybe it all...
I don't know, I give you a base.
Relates to psychopathy.
The base of where that comes from is the Sylvan mind control method. So if you want to look up something, let's talk about Sylvan and how it relates to the rest of life. So what he did with it, I studied a little bit about that, but we'll get into that next week in our further conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, listeners, thank you for listening to our conversation. There's a few different ways you can get a hold of us. You can find those in the show notes. They're right there. And we really would love to start talking to you. So far, nobody's been talking to us. So it would be really cool if we could have conversations
if you would find your
with
voice
our listeners too.
In this conversation.
Find some way to get in contact with us, because if there's something you think we really need to talk about or you really want to hear us just go off on, then that would be so cool to have a suggestion that way.
And we have responded to a few suggestions. I'll have you note. So it's not like
we have.
It's not like we're in a vacuum.
A few of these are from...
There have been 2 or 3 things that we've talked about that have been suggested by listeners. So do that, and we'll make sure that you're aware when we discuss it.
Yeah, that would be so cool. Okay, that's it. Thanks.